Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, good evening, across the continents of the world. Today is African Day. 60 years ago, our founding fathers of the African continent sat down and came up with an idea of the formation of Organization of African Unity. After colonial rule came to an end, Africa decided to forge forward with a message of unity, unity of purpose, unity to bring about development, democracy, unity to adhere to the rule of law, and a unity to make a better Africa. Unity to bring social status, equality in services, equitable distribution of resources amongst the citizens of these newly independent states and those that were under the colonial rule. Ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate 60 years today, we remember what we have gone through. But what we have gone through must teach us how we can go forward, and must teach us how we can resolve the current situation. What kills Africa today is the failure to see the history that brought us to where we are today. Is the failure to recognize the challenges, the obstacles that we have, that these obstacles that we got after independence, throughout military juntas, throughout the dark ages of the Cold War, where America or the West was fighting the East. We seem to be going back in these 60 years again. We have a period where we've gone back. We have destroyed the same tenets that would have made Africa better. Military coups, violence, conflicts, human rights abuses, bad elections, all these have come to hit Africa. Hunger, famine, drought, floods. We have plenty in Africa. When it rains, everybody cries of floods. When it is drought, or when it is dry season, everybody cries of drought. What can we do to harness what God has given us as Africans? What can we do to change the habits that have brought us to where we are today? As we look into the history and we look into the future and we look at what we are doing today, do we have leaders who can think of the generation, not leaders who are thinking of elections? It is sad that in most states in Africa, leaders think of elections, of winning elections, but not of the future generation. Isn't it time for us and for our leaders? Because leadership is God-given. Leadership is from God. Isn't it time for us to sit down and sit back and look at what we can do for the future generation? What shall we leave as a legacy? It brings me therefore to the question of African Union. What type of African Union would you like to see? What type of African Union would you like to leave for the generations to come? An African Union that takes decisions, that stops wars, that stops military coups. An African Union that preaches peace. An African Union that preaches economic emancipation. Emancipation economically is what has caught us in a catch-22 as we strive to make a better Africa. Of course, the colonial hangover that runs around Africa, that hovers over our countries, where people have not let us go, especially in the French-speaking countries, where military coups are occurring on almost 6 months or 3 months in West Africa. Another one coming, strifes coming, a conflict coming between generals in Sudan. Libya is gone, killed by the French because they wanted the resources. They are busy taking the resources out of Africa without anybody. Surely, is this the Africa that African Union can supervise? African Union Commission needs to pull out its socks. The chairperson of African Union Commission, Dr. Moussa Muhammad Faki, my friend, you have not given us any hope. You have not given us any light. No 2060, 23rd. An African passport is on paper. An African Court of Justice cannot sentence even one person. We are looking at International Criminal Court, a court that is already corrupted, a court that is already politically witch-hunted, and witch-hunting Africans is what we are looking at today. We are looking at our former colonial masters who are even saying, you told us to leave. Why are you calling us? Because you have not moved. We have not put in institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, we have not put in institutions that can propel us from the past, the present, to the future generation. What Africa shall we leave for our people? Today is a great day, 25th May 2023. I would like to hear 20 years to come, an Africa that goes to the moon, an Africa that harnesses, that has roads like in London, an Africa that has roads like Paris, an Africa that has roads like Washington or New York or China or Russia. We should not be thinking of an Africa which gives out resources, but an Africa, you give out resources, you pump out your resources, but the people at home where the resources come from, where they are seated on the resources, are poor and poorer. The conflicts in Somalia, in Libya, in Congo, in Sudan, and other parts of East Africa must come to an end. If we have the will to do so, we must be honest and tell each other, time has come for these conflicts to come to an end. Why would you, generals of Sudan, pick the guns and dismantle the whole Khartoum upside down? What type of fight? Even if you are looking for power, why are you taking us back to the 16th century? Why do you pound a whole city, yet you need this city tomorrow for meetings? Yet you need this city tomorrow for tourists? Yet you need this city tomorrow for your internet to be placed? You need shopping malls. Why are you destroying hospitals? Time has come for us to rethink, to sit back and say, the 60 years of Africa, what have we achieved? We have moved forward, come backwards, gone forward, the more we move, the more we remain in the same position. Are we going to do a Chinese style? 40 years ago, China was the poorest country. But today, China supplies us with almost everything, including the money that we use in our hospitals and other places, bridges, roads. How did they do it? They went back, reformed their systems, and the systems started production. Are we ready to reform our systems? Are we ready to have a free and fair distribution of resources? Are we ready to have a free and fair elections? Are we ready to concede where elections have been held freely, candidly, and they say, okay, I wait for 5 years? Are you waiting for 5 years, or you are waiting for more destruction? I have seen across the continent of Africa, every time you speak about Africa, what comes in mind? Elections. But do people of Africa know what elections are? Do they confuse elections with democracy? Does democracy mean elections mean democracy? You can hold even 2,000 elections when there is no democracy. Can we go back to the drawing board? What is the root cause of our misery? I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. With those few words, I wish you a happy Africa Day. Celebrate it together with me. And let God rise up, all of us. Rise, Africa. We shall rise and shine again. Thank you.